What is up, guys, and welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions from Twitter and YouTube and answer them here on this show. And it's a jam-packed one, as you would imagine. A lot of things going on with the Cleveland Browns right now, and a lot of things just going on in the NFL, period. So let's jump into it. And the first question comes from DF Sports, who says, why do you think people keep begging for Brady? Baker will be good. Also, Brady won't want competition or threat. Well, I mean, it's hard to say this about Tom Brady, but if you just look at his numbers from last season, he's really, if you just look at him without the resume attached, not in the position to demand such a thing. So whether he wants competition or not, I don't think anybody's bringing in Tom Brady at the age that he's in and not having any backup plan. That would be goofy. I mean, even if he came back to the Patriots don't draft a quarterback in the late rounds this year to go with Brady. That would be silly. I think they definitely are. Probably going to go for somebody like Jake Fromm out of Georgia. But Brady coming to Cleveland, now that's a whole different thing. I don't think this is happening. I think Brady probably either wants to go back to like San Francisco or maybe even Miami, somewhere where he's wanted to play for a while, in a location that he wants to go in and then retire there. I would highly doubt that he comes to Cleveland and follows Josh McDaniels. I know they have been partnered up for a long time, but I don't think Brady and him have had the best track record of egos clashing when it comes to that thing. I mean, I'm sure they have a lot of respect for each other. I'm sure they like to work for each other, but I don't think that's a relationship to where they'll go out their way to work for each other. And that's what that would require on both sides for that to happen. One, Josh McDaniels would have to get this job and then go out of his way to convince ownership to essentially pump the brakes on their on their rookie deal having quarterback while he's still on that rookie deal, while they could save a ton of money, still bring in somebody like Brady, and then all the things that would create on top of it, with the competition and Baker going into his third year. I just think you don't bench your quarterback if you think he's a franchise guy going in his third year. It doesn't make sense on either side. Baker has not been that bad in the course of his 2-year career to warrant such a thing. So, no, I don't think that's happening. I think it's just something to spin the gears in the media cycle, and I think people bet on it because it's just silly. I don't think it's a real thing to get worried about. But I've been wrong in that aspect before, so who knows? Next question comes from Bruce Johnson, who says, hey, if the Browns in the offseason, if I was the Browns in the offseason, would you sign one of these veteran quarterbacks in case, as insurance in case Baker can't get the job done? And who? Dalton, Brady. You can't do that. When you think you have a franchise quarterback, you can't get a safe guy behind him as a safety net. You kind of just have to go all in, and if you fail, you fail. And the reality is, no matter what backup quarterback they have, this team is not going to reach its potential unless Baker Mayfield reaches its potential. Sure, you can hire somebody who is over the hill to be that backup. Sure, you could bring in competition for Baker Mayfield. But at the end of the day, if Baker is not able to play at his best level, then you have a team that's not going to reach their potential. So I don't see any upside in doing that other than upsetting the apple cart with your franchise quarterback. Some people are going to say, well, if he can't handle, a little competition, and what kind of a quarterback is he? It's not that he can't handle the competition. It's that why strain your relationship with the franchise quarterback that guy that you think is going to be a franchise quarterback? Why strain that relationship for little gain? It doesn't make a ton of sense to me. If Baker Mayfield gets injured, the season's probably over, regardless of who the backup is, unless like Patrick Mahomes is somehow coming off the bench, or somebody who's actually really good right now. it makes no sense not to get behind Baker in that way. And signing another quarterback would say that you're not behind him at all, which is, I think, a deeper problem organizationally than anything. And I think it says more about the Browns as a franchise than it would about Baker as a quarterback if that move were to be done. I don't think it's something that should be. The next question is from Giants Nation, who did not write a paragraph today. So thank you, man. And he actually spelled my name correctly. Wow, this dude's on a roll today. Giants Nation says, "What's up, Quincy? Been a long time. But my question is, what do you think of the Giants' new head coach? Was he a reach or a good pick?" Here's the thing about head coaching hires, right? We have no idea what is a reach or a good hire because everything that we need to know in order to determine those things are behind closed doors and are not spoken of to the public. It's not like a player where you have his resume on hand and you can see how many yards or touchdowns he has and you have some kind of semblance for how good this guy is. When it comes to head coaches, we really only can go off of how much hype the media has given him. So Josh McDaniels is seen as a fantastic candidate to the public because the media has spent a lot of time hyping him, while Joe, the Giants head coach, is not seen as a great candidate because the media has spent zero time hyping him. But I don't think that's necessarily a correlation. And one of the things I didn't like is that when Schefter and ESPN put it out there, they said that this guy was a wide receivers coach. That is actually not correct or representative of this man's experience. This guy has been a special teams coordinator for 3 or 4 years, and I think that actually makes it a decent enough hire. I mean, when it comes to judging head coaching hires, we all really don't know what we're talking about when they happen. So, it's as good as a hire as anybody else has done in the NFL. I mean, how can we, from the perspective that we have when we're using things how do we, from the vantage point that we have, as fans and viewers of the product, not participants in these games, have any type of semblance of what these guys bring to the table? We have no idea what this guy is actually like in the locker room, how he handles player relationships. He might be amazing in that. That's what makes John Harbaugh so good. We have no idea how that guy handles those situations. We can only go off of press conference clips, and if we're lucky, they got a mic'd up segment or they were on Hard Knocks or something, so we can have more of a glimpse inside what they actually do. But from this vantage point, we really don't know anything about these assistants when they get hired. So to me, it's hard to really judge these things as harshly, especially when somebody has coordinator experience. And I thought that was really weird that ESPN chose to leave the coordinator part out, but they put the wide receiver coach in. It's almost like they wanted that hire to look bad. And I did think it looked really bad at first until I did more research about it. But I think it's as good as a hire as you can get. I don't think anybody was a great candidate this year. I think they're all C pluses. So, I don't think you hired anybody any worse. I don't think Matt Rule is that much different than who you hired, and Josh McDaniels is that much different from Matt Rule. There's no shining bright candidate this coaching search, except for Pete Carmichael Jr. Folk. Next question comes from Stomping Peak, who says, "Do you really think our owners, the Haslams, will hire the right people this time? They are looking more and more. They are the worst owners in the NFL. They're not looking like the worst owners in the NFL. They are. There is nothing you could point to since they've owned this team that you can say is better than any other franchise in the NFL. We can talk about Dan Snyder in Washington, D.C. all we want. They've made the playoffs in this millennium, and they have actually, I think they've done it multiple times, like they have mismanaged things. They are dysfunctional. They are unlikable, but they have not been as consistently bad as the Browns. And since Haslam has taken over the team, this team has been terrible. And it's been ran terribly, and it's turned the Browns from a team that's bad and mediocre and, that you want to get better to just a national joke. I mean, it's gone from respectable bad to just a joke. And that's what I detest the most about the Haslams, and what they've done with the team. And, as far as your question goes, do I think they'll hire the right people? Not on purpose. No, they won't hire the right people, but they might let the guy who can actually hire the right people make the right decision and fall into a good coach. Those things happen. All it takes is a couple of mistakes to get some things right, and things can fall in place, even for the most dysfunctional owner. It really isn't that far-fetched to see that happening. And, once you're in a good situation, it's a lot easier to maintain it. So, no, I don't think that the Hasms are going to get this right, but I think that other things on this team can be right that are out of their control, out of their direct control, that can fix this franchise from the bottom up, i.e. Baker Mayfield. If he gets right, then it makes a lot of other people look smart, and it kind of erodes some of that dysfunction at the top. But if we're just relying on the Hasms to hire the next great head coach, yeah, I doubt that's happening on purpose. They would have to fall backwards into that. So no, I don't believe that at all. The end gaming axis, me, how should the Browns treat Baker's development differently than last year? Look, as far as in building, we don't even know who the coach is going to be, so I don't know how they're going to handle the development differently. I would hope that they see what responsibilities threw him off, what threw him off, period, last year, and make adjustments towards that to see if he was just carrying too much or if the schemes just weren't designed in a way that was beneficial towards him. As far as how I'm going to view his development in his third year as just a onlooker of the situation, that's going to be massively different than his second year. You get a lot of excuses in your first 2 years, but your third year, you don't. It's a lot like college. You can mess around your freshman and sophomore year all you want, but when you go to junior, well, it gets a lot more real, and that's what it's going to be for Baker. This is do or die for him. He needs to have a good season this year, and there needs to be no excuses on why he can't. I am not going to sit here and make the same excuses for Baker in year 3 that I made in year 2. There is going to be no conversation about, is the scheme fitting Baker Mayfield, or is he not getting enough blocking and all that. All that stuff is tired by year 3. Nobody wants to hear it. Not the fans, not the coaches, not the owners, not the GM. Nobody's going to want to hear these excuses. So for Baker Mayfield, all of that stuff, if it ain't right, it don't matter. The situation doesn't have to be optimal in order for you to succeed. And if you are a franchise quarterback, that has to be the case. Look at Aaron Rodgers. He has not had optimal situations in his career. He has succeeded. So because he's a franchise quarterback. So for Baker Mayfield, the situations, if they're not optimal, I don't care. He has to do better. He has to perform. He has to be a really good quarterback this year, or else then you could start having the conversation of him not being worth that number 1 overall pick. So we can nitpick and point out minor things and small things about Baker Mayfield. And if he has this right, then he's this good. It doesn't matter. If he can't overcome the circumstances, if he can't overcome the negative and pull out a good season, regardless of what happens around him, then that is going to say a lot about his future coming on, especially since the guy that drafted him is not here. So there's going to be even less excuses made within the building, which might ultimately be a good thing for Baker Mayfield. But that is going to be the difference. Those little excuses, they don't matter anymore. This next question comes from Beware the Chunt. Yeah. And they ask me, Bieniemy is clearly a leader of men, not losing the locker room. Any chance the Hassans will pick up on that? Again, when it comes to head coaches, I don't know what's clear or not clear. I do think Eric Bieniemy is a good head coach in waiting. I do think he is going to be a great head coach, and I do think he deserves to be a head coach. So if the Browns hired him, I would not be opposed to that at all. But as far as the Haslams, do I think they're going to hire him? I think they have their heart set on Josh McDaniels, and I think very soon we're going to find out that is the case. But, I do like Bieniemy. The next question comes from Kevin Durant's burner account, who says, do you think if we let go of Kirksey and Vernon, and with the cap rising next year, we could sign Joe Schobert and Trent Williams, who is a veteran, an immediate starter on the offensive line. All right, I'm just going to be honest here. I agree with you. I don't think we're going to sign Vern. I think we're going to release both Kirksey and Vernon. I think they're both gone. I think Joe Schobert is probably gone. Demarius Randall is gone. And there's probably somebody else who's going to be gone. Because, I think the Browns are going to want cap flexibility in free agency. But I don't think they're going to bring Trent Williams. And I don't think they should bring in Trent Williams. He is such a question mark, and he is going to want a lot of money. That I think that flyer has passed. Maybe if you would have traded a 4th-round pick for him, saw how he played in your system, and then you could have took the flyer and signed him, that would have made sense. But he hasn't played football in 2 years. He is older, and there is no guarantee he is Trent Williams anymore. And for the money you'll be signing him for, you would need that guarantee. So no. You can probably get a left tackle in the draft or figure it out in some other way. That's what they get paid to do. And I don't think Trent Williams should be brought in. Now, why do I think Schobert's walking? Well, I don't think they value Schobert. I don't think the last regime valued him. I don't think the regime before him valued him. I think the only person who truly valued Joe Schobert and where Joe Schobert will probably end up if he's a free agent is Greg Williams. Greg Williams valued Joe Schobert and loved Joe Schobert. And I think if Greg Williams had the chance, he would sign Joe Schobert in a heartbeat in New York to go along with C.J. Mosley. But everybody else, I don't see the value in him. I don't see the reason to re-sign him when you got Taki and Mac Wilson on the roster. And, to me, guys like Joe Schobert are easily replaceable. I know he's a leader. I know he is a great tackler. Well, not a great tackler, but I know he can get a lot of tackles. And I know he's made some plays. But the Browns have always been able to get that guy throughout all the dysfunction. That's the easiest guy for this team to get. DeQuell Jackson, Christian Kirksey, now Joe Schobert. Before that, it was Andre Davis with the A and his whole name on the back of his jersey. It's just we're always able to get those guys because those guys are ultimately not that hard to find in the NFL, and those guys really do shine on mediocre defenses because the defensive lines are usually so bad that the linebackers do end up tallying a ton of tackles. But I don't think he's a difference maker, and I don't think he's a guy you sign to a contract because he's not a difference maker. He hasn't been one in the locker room. He's a good dude. I'm not trying to say he's not, but he's not the kind of guy to make an impact in your locker room, and he hasn't been one on the field. So I don't see a reason to sign him or go out of your way to sign him or Trent Williams. I think if McDaniels comes in, he's probably going to clear that space to just bring in guys he knows. Think Eric Rowe, think Logan Ryan, think those kind of guys who are going to come in. I would also kind of keep your eye out if McDaniels comes in that either Greedy Williams or Denzel Ward gets shipped out. That wouldn't really surprise me. So again, keep your eye out on that until they get the new head coach and the new GM. We really don't know what the plan is, but I would be prepared for a lot of people to be walking, especially the guys who haven't produced with high contracts. The next question is from Kyle Liu, who says, as of now, what are your expectations for the Browns record in 2020? I honestly expect this team to go at least 10-6 next year. That hasn't changed. I think, as long as they keep the core together, that they should go 10-6 with a competent head coach. He doesn't have to be good. He just has to be competent. And if there's competence, you will win a bunch of games this year because, you don't need the big things done. You don't need to bring in a ton of talent. You have it on the roster. You just need competence to go with it. So I'm really not concerned about that being as big as a deal. So I'm really not concerned as far as next year's team goes, and I'm not losing hope because I think the team's going to go 4-12 next year. I'm just upset with the overall direction of the franchise. But they're probably going to go 10-6 next year or 11-5. And this last question comes from Kyle Mullenkamp, who says, why hasn't Dave Toub's name come up during the wave of coaching searches? Now, that's a special teams coordinator I thought to get hired, but I think it has to do with his age. He's older. He's up there. Generally, they like to go younger in coaching hires for whatever reason. And I think his window has passed him as a candidate in some people's eyes. And for whatever reason, even though the coaching tree has a lot of success, people aren't trying to hire Andy Reid's assistants anymore, which makes no sense to me. So, that is a huge question mark to me. But thank you for the question. And thank you guys for asking all those questions. And let me know in the comment section down below, do you think that the Browns should still have the expectation of going at least 10-6 next season? What's your expectations? Let me know in the comment section down below. But thank you guys for watching. Have a great day and have a good night.